Welcome back, everybody, to some more Death Stranding post-game. I don't think there's going to be too much going on here, which is why I would like to find another video to throw on. What's
The
this
world
one?
of Death Stranding.
This video will be looking at how Death Stranding borrows elements from the horror genre to create a world that haunts both the gameplay and the story. Uh... Yeah, we'll try it, sure. Hang on, let me get my setup going here. What is this one? Oh, is this the one we watched last time? It is. We'll give this one a shot. This is the Haunted World of Death Stranding by Ghost Waves.
Stranding is haunted, both in a literal sense, but also a metaphorical one. If you're familiar with my channel, you'll know I'm a bit of a horror enthusiast. It's by far my favorite genre. This is in large part thanks to its more unrestricted nature, which allows creators to explore themes and stories that would otherwise feel out of place. And whilst I wouldn't attribute Death Stranding to being a game that belongs to the horror genre, it does borrow elements from it. In this video, I want to dissect this aspect of the game, and how it directly influences both the gameplay and the story. So join me as we explore the bizarre and disturbing world of Death Stranding. Perhaps the most literal form of horror found in this game are the beached things, or BTs for short. These are souls that are stranded in the world of the living, those that passed away but failed to cross through the space in between the living and the dead, referred to simply as the beach. The inclusion of this location and its direct connection to the ghostly apparitions remind me of the link between the malevolent spirits in the Insidious franchise and the Further, a mysterious realm that they are likewise tethered to. But whereas the supernatural entities in the
so
Insidious
everything we have left is in
franchise
the next
haunt
area.
an individual, the BTs in Death Stranding haunt the world itself, with the echoes of these trapped souls posing a similarly real threat, but one that also covers almost every corner of its melancholic landscape. This combination of a natural and understated world against the dangerous otherworldly beings inhabiting it are a significant contributor towards the game's distinctive identity, with the juxtaposition between moments of quiet, contemplative scenic views and sudden heart-pounding encounters, creating an atmosphere that feels simultaneously inviting and uninviting.
Good morning, Sam. Blood collection complete. Thank you for your generosity.
This feeling extends to our private room, which is a space the player will visit frequently as part of the gameplay loop, serving as respite in between deliveries. In this location, we can rest, take a shower, play music, modify equipment, and catch up on emails. It's one of the few places that feel truly safe, at least initially, because whilst there's no actual perceivable danger, the private room ends up playing host to some of the more frightening scenes in the game, such as this cutscene that harkens back to PT, with a beached thing seemingly inspired by Lisa, the supernatural entity that haunted the playable teaser of Kojima's cancelled Silent Hill game. This moment was not only incredibly unexpected, but also confirmed the randomized nature of the private room. In reality, scenes like this are extremely rare, with only a small likelihood that they'll actually occur. But due to how much this PT-inspired scene took me by surprise, every time I entered the private room following it, I couldn't help but feel just slightly on edge, as though I could never allow myself to lower my guard completely, just in case. It's a great example of a developer
Okay, my
using
zip lines
horror
are fine.
tropes to subvert
70%
our
is workable.
expectations by toying with the concept of safe spaces within a game.
Got really
The
bad
presence
news
of
though,
BTs
guys.
in the
We're
game world exponentially
actually really
heightens the
close to
threat
already
of Death
being
Stranding.
capped out in the central
And
region
I'm not just referring to the
for the
risk of
chiral
damaging
capacity.
our precious cargo, although that is vitally important. The danger the BTs pose to human life can have a massive ripple effect known as a void out. If a beached thing consumes an individual, the crossover of their dead matter against that of the living creates a cataclysmic explosive reaction. This explosion has the potential to wipe out cities, with the burst of energy annihilating the population and leaving nothing but a crater in its wake. Whilst our playable character Sam Porter-Bridges possesses a far lower risk of dying and therefore triggering a void out, thanks to him being something referred to as a repatriate, the risk of these crater-sized explosions remains ever present in the story and during certain moments of gameplay. In most post-apocalyptic settings, the near-extinction level event has already taken place. The stories surround the remaining survivors picking up the pieces and trying to endure the newfound environment. For example, in Fallout New Vegas, one of my favorite games, the bombs have already dropped. 200 years later, we step in the shoes of a survivor that has to navigate the scarcer resources and mutated enemies born from the increased radioactive exposure. But aside from specific moments, the immediate threat posed by the nuclear warheads is no longer present. In Death
I gotta
Stranding,
get these built
not
up.
only has an extinction event leveled civilization, but the void outs pose a continued large-scale threat years later. This also isn't solely due to the BT successfully consuming an individual, but the passing of human life itself. As
My
explained
gosh,
by the character
it's one of
Hartman,
Dash's
Death
structures.
Stranding's concept of death draws inspiration
A
from
generator in the
Egyptian
middle of
culture,
nowhere.
where rather than death being considered an instantaneous state, it is instead a gradual process. When an individual dies, their soul vacates their body. It then passes through a transitional space called the seam and onto the beach, before finally reaching the afterlife. But in some cases, these souls will try to return to their bodies after death, a process referred to as necrosis. Corpses therefore need to be disposed of to sever the connection between the body and soul.
Oh, hang on, we gotta do some math here. Yeah, it's gonna be a math stream. Okay, I don't need to worry about chiral crystals. I got all those on me. Metal, we're gonna need... $630. Ceramics looking like... $470. Over here. What is that? 1,110 metal and 690 ceramic. And this one looks like it's going to take a good bit. $2,400 metal. $2,700 ceramic. Okay. In total, we're looking at 630 plus 110, 2,400. 4140M and 470, 690, 2,700, 3,860 C. Okay. And that'll get us up to here. Some of this is in the network. Like, that stuff is on network. This is not. The first prepper. Do I have anything for the first prepper? Maybe. We got to keep our eye out for some of that. It's vitally important that we get something that's heading to them.
All weapons will remain locked.
Oh, I don't have enough metal here. Or ceramic. Oh. Okay. I don't suppose you guys in the shared locker have anything for me, do you? Nothing. I'll take that. Give me a couple of those. Give me... We absolutely want the all-terrain skeleton. I'll take another floating carrier. And a long-range truck tier 3. Oh gosh, wait, why does mine look so green? I'm sure it's fine. Where am I going to get all these supplies? The doctor has a whole bunch. Maybe we'll just go clean him out real quick. Why don't we do that? What do I need? 41, 38. I won't get all the ceramics from him, but he does have all of the... Oh my gosh, you got so much. Why don't we go take from the roboticist? Is there an easy way up there with a vehicle? Any chance I can get there with my truck? Is that the cursed zipline? No, I took all those down, right? Okay, we have the game plan.
Those that are not incinerated or thrown into the lakes within 48 hours risk going necro, a process that, if successful, culminates in the creation of a beached thing and risks a void out. One of the game's earliest cutscenes was very effective at emphasizing these elevated stakes, whilst also feeling like a scene
I think we just
pulled
take the
straight
zipline
from
there.
a horror film.
And load up as much as we possibly can.
This sequence sets a tone by connoting the idea that the world of Death Stranding rests on a razor's edge, a balance that's upheld by the preservation of life. This simultaneously serves to underpin the importance of using non-lethal tactics to dispatch human enemies,
Did I not make...
which created a precedent that really impacted the combat experience for me. As whilst I typically seek out non-lethal options in games, this is usually for the sole purpose of maintaining my character's moral compass, or obtaining the best conclusion to a questline. When combat does initiate, like many of us, I'm relatively desensitized to the bloodshed and rarely give little thought about the enemies I'm dispatching. But in Death Stranding, the contextualization gained from the world building and its perilous implications result in different rules of engagement. Killing humans feels antithetical to the theme of humanity's fragility, and the more wholesome philosophy presented by the story's focus on reconnection. In terms of gameplay, prioritizing non-lethality also mitigates the risk of creating a BT-infested crater in the game world, or having to take a lengthy detour to an incinerator during a delivery. It also upsets our bridge baby Lou, which is something that I didn't want weighing on my psyche either. Whilst I'm not someone who's overly concerned with the concept of ludonarrative dissonance, the intertwining of the world, story and gameplay does present fitting consequences for lethally taking out enemies. This really encourages players to avoid killing whenever possible, whilst emphasizing the focus of Sam's character design, helping us to align and understand his role in this world, which first and foremost is simply a man who delivers cargo. Sam is also someone referred to as a doom sufferer, These are people who possess a greater connection
I don't like
to
what's
the
going on
beach,
here.
resulting in an allergy to chiralium, a material that manifests from the space in between.
Is this one
Most
cursed?
importantly, and more relevant to this video, being a Doom sufferer grants the individual the ability to detect BTs. The range of clarity in this detection is dependent on how high they rank in a level scale. Those higher up in number can see the beached things, and some can even control them. Such is the case for the game's antagonist, Higgs. But as someone with only level 2 Dooms, Sam doesn't possess this ability. He can just sense the BTs. As a horror fan, I'm very grateful for this choice. As quoted by H.P. Lovecraft,
The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear. And the
Hang on, I
oldest
need that
and
one for the veteran
strongest
quarter.
kind of fear is fear of the unknown.
I'm always a subscriber to this idea. The concept of the scariest creations being the ones we don't see. Entities conjured by our minds to fill in the blank spaces that aren't actually visible. Being able to detect a BT simply through audio cues and the occasional placement of their earth-puncturing handprints is nerve-wracking. Although that's not to say we can't see them at all. The bridge baby I mentioned earlier, Lou, serves as both our companion throughout the journey and a useful tool. This is due to Lou's connection to the beach from her role as a bridge baby. The BB units are created through the caesarean birth from a brain-dead mother. This tragic and distressing event creates a connection between the still mother's womb and the beach, with the BB unit's pod likewise simulating this environment and even maintaining the connection. Something that, in conjunction with Sam's own history and level 2 Doom's abilities, allows us to visualize the BTs using the scanner connected to Lou's pod, named the Odradek. Whilst we are unable to identify any granular details, when in close proximity, the scanner will reveal a disturbingly humanoid silhouette with an umbilical cord-like tether representing the apparition's connection to the beach. Also, as a quick side note, I know there are some mixed opinions on Kojima's storytelling techniques and
there's
specifically
BTs
his
here?
writing, but I really do appreciate the attention to detail
Over there?
placed on
Huh.
theme. This idea of everything having a tether or a connection to exist feels very intentional, and something we see across the game. For example, in order for the BTs to exist, they must be tethered to the beach. If we sever this connection, the spirit ascends and
I can get
passes
rid of
on,
those too.
sometimes even sending us likes as gratitude. For Lou to operate effectively, the similar umbilical cord-like wire
just do that
needs
now?
to be connected to Sam. Without it, the Odradek scanner doesn't work. And more broadly speaking, for humanity to survive and rebuild, they must join together and reconnect through the chiral network in unification. It connotes the idea that all aspects of life have an anchor point, something that when connected makes them what they are, for better and worse. Through the BTs, we learn that some anchors should be disconnected.
I can at
as
least
their
get rid
sole
of that
purpose
one.
is to weigh the individual down, preventing them from being truly free. But on the contrary, some connections bring us together and make us the sum of all our individualized parts. It's a really interesting theme, and one I'll be dissecting further when discussing the game's characters. But for now, returning back to the aesthetic of the BTs, I find their design to be really impactful. It's very much a less is more visual approach, with their floating dark hazy appearance connoting the idea that these beings are Death Stranding's versions of paranormal ghosts, apparitions with questionable sentience. It's unclear whether their intentions are malignant or if their actions are simply residual. Echoes of those who had autonomy over their souls before, now overcome with a singular, instinctive and disruptive purpose. There is a section of the game where we don't have BB with us, and trying to evade the beach things without Lou's assistance is not only extremely difficult, but also incredibly stressful. Utilizing the Odra deck is therefore our most viable means of navigating BT territory and surviving. But the reliance on this device also serves as a gameplay mechanic to heighten the player's suspense. As the closer we get to a BT, the more the sensor begins to fluctuate. The sound design of its rapid activation matching our own rapidly increasing heart rate. If the proximity between the player and the BT gets too close, the Odra deck will glow orange and begin to spin viscerally, indicating our imminent discovery. During this moment, Lou will become increasingly distressed. The crying of this innocent baby drastically contrasts the nearby horror, emphasizing its frightening nature and encouraging our own protective instincts. And despite every fiber of my being wanting to run in this moment, this survival impulse needs to be ignored. Movements must remain slow and deliberate in order to chart a course around the BTs. This is when the ability to hold Sam's breath also becomes crucial in aiding our escape. These moments feel reminiscent of the hiding mechanics found in horror games like Outlast and Amnesia. But whereas we're typically cowering behind a locker or a cupboard door when holding our breath, in Death Stranding, the player still has to prioritize movement to avoid detection. Holding our breath also reduces Sam's stamina, so it can only be used as a temporary reprieve from detection, offering a small amount of extra time that needs to be used efficiently. If the player does become detected, there is still a brief window of escape, but once again, it's a moment designed like something pulled straight from horror media. As tar-covered bodies rise from the ground and grapple onto us, attempting to drag our body into the depths beneath them. It's almost akin to the feeling of underworld-dwelling entities attempting to lay claim to our living soul. In this moment, and if stamina and luck are on the player's side, Sam can break free from their grasp. No matter how many times I've achieved this narrow escape, the relief is always palpable, because the alternative to not escaping is an intense escalation, starting with our body being dragged through the ground as black waves of thick tar collapse across the landscape. This is when a variant of BTs known as catchers emerge. These larger beach things take different forms, but always pose a formidable threat, one that will engage either a fight or flight response. A choice that's dependent on the player's preparedness and whether they stocked up on the ammunition specifically catered for this enemy type. Earlier I referred to Sam as something called a repatriate. This is someone who has the ability to guide their soul through the scene and back to their body, without risking a void out or becoming a BT. This also allows his DNA to be utilized in the creation of anti-BT weapons, providing our most effective means of defense against this otherwise invulnerable adversary. The first weapon we're able to fabricate are the hematic grenades. These are created by mixing explosive material with Sam's blood due to its repatriate qualities. When detonated, the grenades erupt into a cloud of saturated red particles, which I found to be oddly satisfying. As the player progresses, they're given access to more conventional
This could be
firearms
just a
designed to
teensy
utilize
bit dangerous
BTs,
here.
all
Gotta be
of which
careful.
possess the same blood-infused technology. But in the spirit of Death Stranding's less combat-focused
God
design,
damn it.
there is a restrictive caveat to using this equipment. Every grenade thrown or round fired draws blood directly from Sam's health gauge. Accuracy and player restraint therefore becomes a critical element of combat against BTs, with breaks in between attacks being required in order to offer Sam time
Good
to
one,
replenish
Sam.
his blood levels through transfusions or the consumption of cryptobites. Given the less combat-oriented approach to gameplay, you'll be forgiven for not stocking up on weapons before venturing out on a delivery. Fortunately, even if an unexpected BT encounter catches you off guard, the player can utilize Sam's cufflinks as an offensive option to prevent the aforementioned escalation.
Sam, what are you doing, Sam?
This device has a chiralium blade attached, which possesses the ability to sever the cord connecting the apparitions to the beach, due to the chiral matter originating from the same location. This not only provides a backup option for those who are underprepared, but also works in combination with Death Stranding's stealth mechanics, a system that's implementation shares DNA with the Metal Gear Solid pedigree of the game's director. Whilst the beach things represent Death Stranding's versions of paranormal entities, they aren't the only aspect of this world that's haunted. In Mike Flanagan's horror Netflix show, The Haunting of Hill House, there's a specific line of dialogue that encapsulates the idea behind a ghost. When asked if he's seen one before, the character Stephen Crane explains,
I've seen a lot
I'm worried
of ghosts,
about that
just
one.
not the way you think. A ghost can be a lot of things. A memory, a daydream,
No, I'm trying to get
a secret,
over there.
grief, anger,
Oh.
guilt. But in my experience, most times they're just what
Yes,
you
I can
want
now.
to see.
So I upgraded
Most
it.
times, a ghost.
I don't need that one
as
either.
you wish.
the idea that a ghost could
do I?
represent more than just a paranormal entity and instead be used as a narrative device to define a character's backstory is one that's really compelling to me. And as you've probably guessed, it was the inspiration behind the name of this channel, which, if you've also seen other videos of mine, you may remember a line I've referenced from John Truby's book, The Anatomy of Story, specifically the description that a character's ghost is an event from the past that is still haunting the hero in the present. In other words, it's something that possesses a hold on the individual, acting as an internal opponent which tries to dictate their actions. Death Stranding's world and cast of characters feel as though they were built around this concept, but the game takes it a step further through its thematic emphasis on the connections. It's important to note that in this section of the analysis, I'm going to be examining key characters alongside the story content of the game. If you wish to avoid spoilers, I'd just like to thank you for watching up until this point. Perhaps one of the best examples of the aforementioned theme stems from our playable character, Sam Porter-Bridges. Sam suffers from something called aphantasmophobia. This is the fear of being touched. As noted in the collectible interview logs, it's suspected this phobia originated from a lack of social interaction as a child, alongside a diminished relationship with his adopted mother, Bridget. Over time, and thanks to his evolving and eventual romantic connection with his therapist Lucy, he began to overcome his fear. The two eventually got married and fell pregnant, although, as is typical for the world of Death Stranding, things didn't stay perfect for long.
I found some records from 10 years ago. A death, sudden, in the middle of a town. Young woman in the prime of her life. Nobody knew until it was too late. A void out. Her husband, who was a member of Bridges, had dooms. He tried, but he couldn't get to her in time. The whole town was wiped off the map, leaving nothing but a big crater and him, because he was a repatriate.
This event that Deadman explains understandably became an emotional catalyst for grief and guilt for Sam, and when relating back to the concept of a character ghost, it serves as the backstory that haunts our protagonist, dictating his actions in the present whilst simultaneously affecting his subconscious, causing his aphantasmophobia to return. I mentioned earlier how some of these tethers benefit individuals whilst others act as anchors to weigh them down. I believe Sam's character ghost is another example of this theme. His attempts to reconnect America and bring people together is about much more than simply transporting cargo. Each delivery made reflects a small victory won against the internal opponent born from his connection to a traumatic past. We can see this during the progression of the story, as Sam's pessimistic worldview begins to diminish. His gradual acceptance of others and overcoming of aphantasmophobia initially materializes in subtle ways. A moment as minor as accepting a cryptobite from Fragile provides insight into this and gives the scene greater emotional impact. Then there are more amusing avert moments.
No one can spy on us in here.
Such as his ability to remain patient through extreme discomfort when sharing a shower with the character Deadman. And just for context for those unaware, this was to allow them to have a conversation without being recorded by the private room's surveillance system.
Well, Sam, you're a good sport. I'll give you that.
But perhaps my favourite development from Sam is his growing bond with Lou, his bridge baby. Whilst Deadman initially refers to the BB units as tools and rejects the idea of their personification, Lou ends up serving as a connection that helps him overcome the loss of his unborn baby. Watching Sam grow out of the shadow of this ghost was like watching the cutting of the tethers trapping the souls of ETs to their harrowing existence. I also love the idea that the man responsible for reconnecting this haunted world is the one that originally wants nothing to do with it. The motivation behind Sam's mission to connect everyone to the chiral network was to honour the request given on Bridget's deathbed. But it ends up becoming a symbiotic relationship between each location linked and the progression of Sam's emotional growth and resolve.
Thanks for everything.
The concept of a character ghost is not limited to Sam, but the supporting cast as well. The character Fragile likewise shares a haunted past, driven by her desire for revenge against Death Stranding's antagonist named Higgs. A desire motivated solely by her connection to a single traumatic event. Forced by Higgs into making a decision that led to her carrying an atomic warhead away from a populated city, whilst running through a downpour of timefall he created. This rainstorm aggressively ages anything it touches, including buildings, vehicles, cargo, and the living. Due to its existentially terrifying effect, Fragile was left forever changed both physically and psychologically by this moment. Her journey to attain revenge and overcome this ghost progresses in tandem with our playable character's battle against his own internal opponent. The structural similarity of their backstories serves as an effective motivator to push the narrative along, as I began to look forward to every scene the two were together. The interactions between Fragile and Sam acted as insightful touchstones for their character development, showing the changes occurring in their states of mind, with their disposition towards one another shifting from strange unfamiliarity into welcomed company. This gradual acceptance reflected through cordial body language and dialogue representing an evolving relationship and another example of a connection that benefits both individuals.
Close your eyes. Now picture Harmony and her beach.
There is also a character that more obviously reflects this theme of connection, as they are joined both literally and figuratively to a ghost. Whilst the thematic representation here is quite heavy-handed, I was really impressed at how well a single cutscene encapsulated this concept. Our introduction to Mama culminates in a flashback to a traumatic event. A time
Damn,
that,
they got a lot at the
whilst
weather
waiting for
station.
a
Hang on.
C-section, the hospital building she was in was attacked, trapping her beneath the collapsed rubble. With no food and access only to time for water, Mama remained under the debris for days. The sequence ends with Mama giving birth to a stillborn baby girl, one whose soul transforms into a beached thing.
I gave birth there in the rubble. But instead of bringing life into the world, I brought death.
The character is therefore both emotionally tethered to this tragedy, but also literally connected to it in the form of an umbilical cord-like link. It's an anchor that is weighted in both positive and negative connotations. Through this cord, she maintains a relationship with the daughter she lost, but this connection not only serves as a constant reminder of this loss, but also physically ties Mama to the past, unable to leave the rubble where it happened without risking the severing of the cord. There is enough narratively here to create a conflicting dilemma for Mama, but even more is revealed to the player about this connection. When Mama draws some of Sam's blood for the purpose of creating anti-BT weaponry, she touches his arm, a moment that Sam remarks as icy cold. This is a reaction the player would likely assume as fueled by his aforementioned phobia, but the reason for Mama's low temperature is because she's not actually alive. When her daughter died, it's indicated that part of her soul passed in this moment as well. The connection to her baby is also what's keeping her in the realm of the living, therefore making this arguably the heaviest anchor featured in the narrative, due to the numerous story implications that arise from severing it. Mama's story ends up introducing us to other members of the supporting cast. Lochner, her twin sister, and Hartman, another member of Bridges, and as you've probably guessed, someone who further exemplifies the theme of ghostly connections. Whilst undergoing surgery, Hartman's wife and daughter were caught in two simultaneous void outs, two craters that met in the middle, forming the shape of a heart. These same void outs also caused a shockwave to Hartman's life support during his operation, temporarily sending him to the beach, where he was surrounded by the souls who had just died, including his loved ones. After the emergency power activated, so did the hospital's defibrillator, bringing him back to the realm of the living. But upon his return, he was unable to process this loss. In a state of desperation fueled by grief, Hartman began intentionally causing cardiac arrests. This allowed him to create opportunities to search for his family on the beach. Over time, his emotional scars became physical ones, with the repeated attempts ending up causing damage to his heart. A decade later, his now deformed heart involuntarily goes into cardiac arrest every 21 minutes, with a defibrillator reviving him after 3 minutes of being clinically deceased.
Wait, someone upgraded this? Ah, fuck.
Visit 218.
I can't get rid of it.
550.
A window of time that was still being used to continue his search. Like Sam, Fragile and Mama, the traumatic past of this character has a firm grip on both his body and mind in the present. Trapped in a never-ending loop next to the heart-shaped crater in the living world, whilst obsessively trying to locate his wife and daughter in the dead one. And when relating back to the quote from The Haunting of Hill House, I believe Hartman best represents Stephen Crane's final line of dialogue, the idea that for most people, a ghost is a wish. Despite my love for the implementation of this theme in these characters, there is a supporting one that remains my personal favourite, a fascination.
Guys, what happened to my my lost cargo for that one prepper? Did I get rid of it? Oh man, son of a gun. I think I gave it to the roboticist. God damn it. What is going on here? Well, I can do that one. At least. So I need the collector, the first prepper. I thought there was another one. All right. How much does this one need then? This one just needs 640 metal. $960 ceramic. It's not that bad. Wait, those are extra large. How many of these? Holy moly. Oh dear. Oh, that filled us right up. Uh-oh. Alright, I've made a mistake. Maybe I'll just drive around and upgrade what I can. And to look for the cargo that I need. I could try to make my way out to that area. That road still needs completed. I'll just drive around for a little bit. I'm in no rush.
And assisted by their introduction being
Are my
layered
boys
with
on
horror
yet?
motifs. Clifford Unger, also referred to as the combat veteran, is not only another example of someone connected to a haunted past, but also a character with exceptional visual design. Our first encounter with Cliff begins with him emerging from the trenches of a World War II hellscape, covered in black tar and flanked by skeleton soldiers. It's a moment that instantly captured my attention, and generates a lot of suspense for the imminent combat encounter. Upon closer inspection, you may notice this face is also familiar, and that's not just because Cliff is portrayed by Mads Mikkelsen, even though I must admit this casting did elevate the character's appeal for me, but this is also the face of the mysterious individual featured in the flashback sequences that occasionally trigger whenever Sam connects to Lou's pod, a link that's due to Sam's origin as an early form of a bridge baby, but more importantly, Cliff's biological son. I appreciate this is where the intersections of various characters and their histories can become a little bit confusing. On my first playthrough, I must admit I wasn't able to fully piece the puzzle together, and even now still occasionally struggle to wrap my head around the finer details. I believe there is valid criticism to the way in which this story's revelations are presented, with much of it being revealed through the interview logs, but I'm going to try to do my best to elaborate on the more relevant plot elements.
He was U.S. Army Special Forces. Fought in Kosovo, Iraq, Afghanistan.
That's him.
Well, that's all I've managed to dig up so far.
Cliff was a highly skilled soldier for the United States Special Forces, who left active duty due to his wife Lisa falling pregnant. Unfortunately, during her pregnancy, the couple were involved in an accident that rendered Lisa brain dead. His wife was then enclosed within a life support pod to prevent necrosis. His unborn child likewise placed in a pod that simulated her womb. You can probably see where this is going, with Sam acting as a prototype bridge baby.
Is this
and
not like
Bridget then
BT
wanting
area?
to move him to an off-site facility to conduct experiments, something his father
I don't think I
was
like
not
this.
going to comply with. After refusing the request for further testing on his baby, Cliff was given an opportunity to escape by a former soldier from his unit named John Blake McLean, otherwise known as Die Hardman, a member of Bridges Cliff held a close connection to. Die Hardman informs Cliff that nothing else can be done for his wife, and if he wanted to
No,
escape,
BTs are
he
down
had
that
to
way.
end her suffering.
Let's go around it.
This prolonged scene showing Cliff readying himself to kill Lisa was devastating to watch. Even more so because during his attempt to rescue his son afterwards, he fails, resulting in Bridget using the same weapon to murder Cliff. It's important to note the character Bridget and Sam's alleged sister Amelie are one and the same. They are the body and soul of an individual that separated during an operation. The soul, Amelie, woke up on the beach. The body, Bridget, remained in the realm of the living. When Bridget shot Cliff, the bullet also accidentally hit Sam. In an attempt to rectify this, she then utilized Amelie on the beach to try and revive him. This event not only made Sam a repatriate, but simultaneously upset the balance between life and death. connecting the worlds of both together. Upon his resurrection and Cliff's passing, Bridget took Sam as her adopted son. However, the combat veteran's distressed soul began searching for his child after refusing to pass through the beach. The version of Cliff we encounter in the game is therefore a BT, a variant which maintained his identity and human form following his death, one who has mistaken Lou for his own child. He is quite literally a ghost that haunts the protagonist. Cliff Unger's story is one that interconnects with almost every aspect of Death Stranding, with actions that are solely driven by a connection to a ghost of the past, as he restlessly searches for his son from beyond the grave. Despite the sometimes confusing nature by which Death Stranding divulges its story information, witnessing Cliff finally attain peace was the high point of the narrative for me, and a moment that did feel emotionally impactful, especially considering Sam was able to bear witness thanks to his unique bond with Lou. It's also another example of a character severing a connection to a burden that's holding them back. And despite my mixed feelings towards the way in which this backstory is presented to the player, the flashback cutscenes are some of my favourites in the game. I sometimes find Kojima's style of writing to be a bit too heavy on exposition, rather than being used to express an individual's personality or a change in their emotional state. Dialogue often serves as a method of emphasizing theme or explaining the parameters of the game world. In fairness, I imagine a lot of this is a necessity to help explain the uniquely complicated nature
Where's
of
the
the worlds
Chiralium
Kojima
sign?
creates. But by comparison, I found the flashback sequences offer the opposite. They present smaller, more nuanced moments focused on the human interaction between a father and his baby, with a less is more style of writing that's minimal, conveyed mainly through expression and tone. It's also a very understated performance from Mads Mikkelsen, who I think was a great casting choice for this character. Getting a more layered performance for the character of Cliff was important, as this storyline ends up becoming the heart of the narrative and the origin of our protagonist. An origin story that feels as though everything and everyone is connected to. But Death Stranding's theme of ghosts extends beyond the game itself. In an interview with Vulture shortly after its release, Kojima described a personal tragedy surrounding the game's development, with the loss of his mother, to which he then explained,
The ghosts in the game, maybe my parents are one of them. Seeing me in this world, I wanted to have that kind of metaphor that within you, you're connected to the people that passed away.
this personal influence seems to have had a powerful impact on the game's story, with Kojima's commitment to emphasize the theme of ghosts from the past becoming my favorite aspect of Death Stranding. I understand there are some mixed opinions on this game, and I've never dismissed the validity of those that didn't find the gameplay loop engaging. But the haunted nature of both the landscape and characters really contributed to the melancholic atmosphere for me, making even the quietest of walks through its understated world feel immersive and almost meditative.
Going on, Tommy?
But what are your thoughts on Death Stranding? Were you someone that resonated with the experience or not? Either way, I hope you enjoyed the video. This is the longest one I've made yet, so I really appreciate you making it
Good
to the
timing.
end.
We just made it through.
I believe our time is
I'll
our
let
most
them
valuable
do their
currency,
outro here.
so I'd like to thank you for choosing to spend yours here. Until next time, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you later.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Once again, that was The Haunted World of Death Stranding by Ghost Waves. I will I'll post a link in chat here. What's Dash up to? I don't know. Tommy, what's your plan today? Oh, the road doesn't go much further. I don't know if I'm gonna have enough ceramic for that section here. Unsure at the moment. I see. Do I have my gun? That one actually doesn't need very much of anything. I can probably get that done. Isn't the BT at territory like right over there? It's over this way, okay. Oh. Wait, that's what is that? Distro center right there? We got a road set up to the distro center. We now have a very easy path through the mountain. That's actually phenomenal. I don't even need that zip line.
Beginning scan. Scanning bridges ID. Verifying ID. Decontaminating traffic. All clear. Welcome, Sand Porter Bridges.
Although my truck does need repaired. Oh, let's see. You know what? I know what I want to throw on here.
Thank you for your generosity.
They was just uploaded today, 8 hours ago. Caspery did another video on soft lock picking, which is a lot of
Hello, internet
fun.
users, and welcome back to another video. The Pokemon games are not known for being the most difficult RPGs. Anyone is capable of starting a new run and easily reaching the credits without needing to know any of the best strategies. It goes without saying, though, that the simplest trainers in the game are found on the very first routes. These NPCs use some of the weakest Pokemon in the whole region at some of the lowest levels available. It's almost impossible to even lose these battles, since you can just quickly get through them by mashing Scratch, Tackle, or Pound with your starter. But what if I told you that it's possible to break a Pokemon game in such a way that it would make one of these weak trainers into an unstoppable menace? For today's video, I'll be doing exactly that on a copy of Pokemon Diamond version. My name is Caspery, and I'm going to show all of you how to absolutely ruin the beginning of Sinnoh. To get started, we'll need to make a new save on the copy of Diamond. We'll spend about 10 minutes mashing through the opening story and obtaining our starter. After receiving the Pokedex from Professor Rowan in Sandgem Town, and speaking to the protagonist's mother in Twinleaf Town, we can now head for Route 202. Once here, Dawn or Lucas will walk the player through the catching tutorial, and then hand over 5 Pokeballs. Once these things are done, we'll now have full access to all of the necessary NPCs and features to complete the rest of the setup. Taking the Pokeballs we just got, we'll go and capture a wild Pokemon on the first route. It doesn't matter which one, we just need to have a second party member. For the next step, on another Gen 4 game, I'll prepare a shiny Heatran that is exactly level 88 and only knows the moves Earthquake and Explosion. You can probably see where I'm gonna go with this, but don't worry, I promise it's much worse than what you're thinking. Next, I'll connect this game to the Diamond save file and trade the random wild Pokemon in exchange for the Heatran. Now that Diamond has the setup's main Pokemon, we'll next need to get rid of all of the items that are available in every area before Route 202. Since we're still in the earliest parts of the game...
Give me one moment here, I gotta think about what we're doing now. There's a road that needs built up there, up north. Maybe we'll just do that one. What do I need for this? Not a lot at all. I don't suppose I have anything in here, do I? Lost cargo. Anything for the collector? Does not look like it. That's a shame. Well, let's see. I do need specifically... What is that? 360 metal. And hang on, I'm too lazy right now. 360 metal, 270 ceramic. $300, $350, $360 metal. And what am I doing? Is this the closest I can get? Hang on. At there. 160, 240, 280. This place has a crazy amount of metal and special alloy.
There is only a couple items to even pick up, so this won't take very long to do. Once they're all gathered up, we'll go into the item bag and throw away all of them. This includes any remaining Pokeballs we might still have. Next, we'll go into the Sand Gem Pokemon Center, access the PC, and then release the starter Chimchar. This will leave the player with the Heatran as their only Pokemon. For the final step, we'll go back to the first route to encounter wild Pokemon, and have Heatran use Explosion to intentionally lose the battles here. When this happens, we'll lose money before being teleported back to the Pokemon Center. We're going to repeat this process a few more times until we're left with no money whatsoever. And finally, with all of the previous steps complete, we'll stand in the middle of the town and save the game. With this, we've just made this entire playthrough almost impossible to continue. As always, I want all of you to imagine that this save was handed over to someone who was told to turn it on and try to continue playing. The following is what they would discover. With nothing else left in Twin Leaf or Sand Gem, the only thing the player can do is try to advance through Route 202. This shouldn't be a problem because after all, they've got a high-level legendary Pokemon on them. It even knows Earthquake too, which is one of the most powerful ground-type moves in the series. But shortly into this area, they'll come across a small obstacle. This person right here is youngster Tristan. He's the first NPC trainer in the game, and he is completely unavoidable. He always faces directly down, and his line of sight extends all the way to the tree in front of him. Youngster Tristan is quite literally the only thing preventing the player from moving ahead and exploring the rest of the Sinnoh region. So obviously, the player of this save would try to battle him. When this battle begins, he'll send out the one Pokemon that he owns, a level 5 Starly, a weak flying type that is completely immune to ground moves. Because Heatran only knows Earthquake and Explosion, there is nothing it can do here that would ever result in a victory. As you can see from the footage, because Heatran is a high-level traded Pokemon, it's very disobedient after being transferred to the save. But when it does finally use an attack, it won't matter. Since Earthquake doesn't affect Starly, an Explosion will always result in a double KO. And when both trainers have their last Pokemon go down at the same time, the game always counts this as a loss for the player. If you return, youngster Tristan will still be blocking the road, ready to battle you again. I can't stress this enough, you have to win for him to get out of the way. But because of what we did to the save file, this isn't something that can easily be accomplished anymore. Let's go over all the reasons why youngster Tristan is essentially invincible and why the player can't do anything about it. At first, you might consider having Heatran use Struggle to defeat the Starly. Struggle is meant to be a last resort option that every Pokemon can use once they've used up all of their attacks. It also completely ignores type matchups, and in Gen 4, even skips the accuracy check to always hit the opponent. By design, Struggle is meant to stop battles from going on forever and prevent unwinnable situations like the one Heatran is in. So if you were to encounter wild Pokemon and waste PP, then you should technically always have an option against type immunities. However, if you're this early into the game and know the move Explosion, it becomes impossible to even access Struggle anymore. As soon as Explosion is used, it will make the user faint, and because Heatran is the only Pokemon in the party, it'll cause a loss and teleport the player back to the last used Pokemon Center. This will restore it to full health and replenish all of its move PP. It doesn't matter if Explosion misses the opponent either, it'll still KO Heatran regardless. The only way to make Explosion fail would be to use it against a Pokemon that has the ability Damp. This will count as a use of the move while preventing the self-destruction part from happening. But unfortunately, Pokemon with Damp aren't available at this point in the game, so this isn't going to help. Needless to say, this is a lose-lose situation that will always force Heatran to KO itself at some point. If this is your first time seeing one of these videos, then the next question you might be asking is if it's still possible to catch another Pokemon. Because of how we set up the save, we don't have any more money and it's impossible to obtain any more items. There's no way to grow berries and we don't have access to Sinnoh's underground either, so we can't just go dig for treasure to sell for more Pokeballs. The player's money will remain at 0 until youngster Tristan is defeated. It's also worth noting that it's impossible to trade with another game anymore. Just like the Generation 3 games, we're not allowed to trade unless we have at least 2 Pokemon in the party, so because we released the starter, this save is completely stuck with Heatran and nothing else. The next thing I want to address is the disobedience mechanic. If you've made it this far into the video, then you might...
Hang on, how are we going to get around this? Can I just go around? We're gonna try. I don't want to go through BT territory right now. Okay. All right, let's keep heading west.
Be wondering if it's possible for Heatran to waste enough turns so that Starly should be able to struggle itself instead. Since struggle inflicts damage to the user, this could hypothetically result in a battle where Starly faints and Heatran survives. And while this might sound like a good idea, I'm afraid that it's just not realistically possible. At level 5, youngster Tristan Starly knows 3 moves: Tackle, Growl, and Quick Attack. The PP for these moves are 35, 40, and 30 respectively. Additionally, in Gen 4, Struggle's recoil damage is equal to a quarter of the user's maximum health. But because this value is rounded down, it will likely take 5 struggles for Starly to KO itself from full
Do these guys
HP.
all have a bunch of
This means
supplies
that
on
in
them?
order for Heatran to survive the battle, it will have to last through 110 turns against the Starly. And to be absolutely clear, this is never going to happen. Because Heatran is at such a high level, and this save has 0 badges, the chances of it disobeying each turn are ridiculously high. But many of these disobedient actions do more than just waste the turn. As you can see from the footage, Heatran will also regularly take damage as if it were affected by the confusion status. This can very quickly build up and lead to it KOing itself long before the 110th turn. However, you won't have to worry about the confusion damage anyway, because there is also another common occurrence that will make Heatran faint. Remember, you must select a move on the battle screen in order to advance the turn, but no matter which one you select, Heatran can always ignore orders and use whichever it feels like. So no, you can't just press Earthquake hoping to stall forever. At any point, Heatran can use Explosion and cause an instant loss. This will happen so often that you'll be lucky to make it a couple of minutes into the battle without seeing it. It's also worth noting that there is no way for any of the nearby wild Pokemon to afflict Heatran with paralysis either. This is a strategy I've shown in other videos with other self-destructing Pokemon. It can help waste turns and stall the battle longer when it activates. However, this early into the Sinnoh games, there isn't anything available that can cause status conditions. Even the wild Shinx here don't have static as an ability or know any electric moves. Heatran can fall asleep sometimes, but even this won't last for very long. The chances of going 110 turns against youngster Tristan without Heatran fainting is so unbelievably unlikely that it's not even worth considering. You could reset this battle for the rest of your life and never get close to that kind of luck. And with that, you can see just how devious this softlock is. We have a save file where the only Pokemon in the player's possession is an overpowered legendary, but due to the type matchups, it's not possible for it to beat the game's first trainer. Do you want to know something that's also really funny? We're so early into the game that the DS's second screen doesn't even show anything when we're outside of battle. It only displays an empty square with a Pokeball because we haven't even unlocked the touchscreen yet. We're still in the middle of the tutorial, with Dawn waiting at the end of the route to check if the player has actually caught anything. But as we've gone over, we're completely stuck with no way to capture more Pokemon or acquire more items. It seems that the player wouldn't be able to do anything except delete the save and start over. But what if I told you that despite all of that, there was still one way to escape and beat youngster Tristan? At this point, I'm sure many of you have been wondering why the Heatran had to be exactly level 88. This is because level 88 is when Heatran learns its second last level up move, Stone Edge. Of course, before I traded it over to Diamond, I used the move deleter to make it forget this attack. By doing this, I've made it so that Heatran still has an opportunity to learn one more attack move by leveling up. If you manage to take this Heatran and train it against wild Pokemon until it reaches level 96, it will gain its signature attack, Magma Storm. This move is fire type and would defeat Starly with no problems whatsoever. This would clear youngster Tristan out of the way and allow the player to continue the rest of the playthrough like normal. However, doing this would require an absurd amount of EXP, especially when you consider that there's only low-level Pokemon available to encounter. To put things in perspective, at level 88, Heatran has a total of 851,840 experience points. At level 96, this total would be 1,105,920 EXP. Therefore, Heatran would need to gain a total of 254,080 EXP in order to learn Magma Storm. Now, if you've ever played a Pokemon game before, then you obviously know that it would take a long time to earn 250,000 experience when you only have access to the first area in the playthrough. This is especially time-consuming when the Pokemon you're training doesn't listen to you and can also just randomly self-destruct at any moment. By the way, whenever this happens and you do get sent back to the Pokemon Center, you'll also have to mash through extra dialogue from the nurse. Because we've had our team wiped out while we're still in the tutorial, she'll give extra advice on how to keep your Pokemon healthy. Again, I need to emphasize, this part of the game is normally so easy that many of you watching probably didn't even realize she has extra lines when you lose here. With all of that said though, there is only one.
Wait, what'd she say?
Only have access to the first area in the playthrough. This is especially time-consuming when the Pokemon you're training doesn't listen to you and can also just randomly self-destruct at any moment. By the way, whenever this happens and you do get sent back to the Pokemon Center, you'll also have to mash through extra dialogue from the nurse. Because we've had our team wiped out while we're still in the tutorial, she'll give extra advice on how to keep your Pokemon healthy. Again, I need to emphasize, this part of the game is normally so easy that many of you watching probably didn't even realize she has extra lines when you lose here. With all of that said though, there is only one more question to ask. How long would it take Heatran to learn Magma Storm and escape the softlock? And well, to be perfectly honest, there is so much RNG involved with this scenario that it's kind of difficult to give an exact number. But I did something to show just how ridiculous this escape really is. I sat down and I attempted to gain as much EXP as possible within 1 hour. When doing so, I turned off the battle animations and set the text speed to the fastest setting. If we're approaching this with the mindset of playing as optimally as possible, then we need to do this since there is no real way to lock the player out of the options menu. You may have also realized this by now, but the reason I made the Heatran shiny is because the sparkle animation is unskippable, even with animations turned off. Although it only adds a couple extra seconds onto each battle, it does add up over time and can make escaping much more annoying. Now, keeping in mind everything I just said, I want all of you watching to guess. Actually guess how many wild Pokemon I was able to defeat in 1 hour. And no, I'm not counting double KOs with Explosion, because Heatran doesn't gain anything when it faints. I'm talking about real KOs that it can only earn when it actually listens and attacks with Earthquake properly. Over the course of the hour, I defeated a grand total of 15 Pokemon. After dealing with so many turns of Heatran refusing to attack and accidentally self-destructing, I was only able to get 15 instances where experience was actually earned, and the total amount for that was a miserable 488 points. Depending on how fast you enter battles and how often Heatran obeys, the amount of experience earned every hour will vary. But just to paint a picture for this video, let's be extremely generous for a moment and say that this amount of 488 experience would be consistent for every additional hour that we continued to train. In order for Heatran to reach the required 254,000 points and learn Magma Storm, we'd need to continue leveling like this for over 521 hours. To put that into perspective, if you were to attempt this escape without ever stopping to sleep or take any kind of break, it would take you around 3 weeks. And again, this is a very generous assumption. If anyone actually sat down and tried to do all of this, it could end up taking a lot longer depending on their luck with Heatran's obedience. But by now, you should all get the point I'm trying to make. Spending over 500 hours to finish the game's tutorial would be ridiculous. Let's be real here, everyone on planet Earth would look at this save for a few seconds and then just start a new game. It would only take you like 10 minutes to reach youngster Tristan again, and then obliterate his Starly with your starter's attacks. But the fact is, everything I've shown for the Heatran setup is completely possible to do without cheats or glitches of any kind. Using the game's own mechanics, I can take a legendary Pokemon and turn the first youngster battle into a complete nightmare. And I think that is really, really funny. But that about does it for this video. Thank you so much for watching to the end. If you want to see other softlock and Pokemon stuff I've done, you can go check out the rest of my channel. I also stream a lot of variety on Twitch, and upload my VODs to my other channel, the Caspery Blue. I'm also a VTuber there too, and I hope you'll come over and join the chat. Thank you again for watching to the end, and I'll see you all next time.
Oops. All right. Yeah, that was Picaspri's newest video. I'll put a link in the chat in just a moment. Whoa! That was cool.
Structure dismantled.
Here is the link. Hang on, I gotta find something to put on. Oh, Criken's doing Outlast trials? Alright, I'm sorry, guys. That one, I cannot stream the audio for that, I'm sorry. That link. Okay, yeah, that's good.
Beginning scan. Scanning bridges ID. Verifying ID. Clear. Weapons detected. All weapons will be locked until departure. Cargo verified. Thank you. Good work. New order.
It really would not be the worst thing in the world to get a zipline system like up to these guys. Let me see, hang on. Dash is only available until 9. Darn, yeah. Wait, the timefall does actually clear up in that area, so that would be an easy way to get in there.
Safe travels. Have a pleasant journey. Safe travels.
Some memory chip in there that I didn't grab?
Still got it.
Did that just spawn in because I just got 5 stars with that one way station or whatever? Alright, well I gotta get in there at some point. It's fine, I'm really not concerned with these guys. They don't really have anything that good either. We're still looking for any cargo heading to the first prepper or whatever and the collector. I wonder if you're more likely to find their stuff the closer you are to their locations. I'm not sure. The novelist's son. Alright, I do want to grab that in a moment.
Beginning scan. Scanning bridges ID. Verifying ID. Clear. Weapons detected. All weapons will be locked until departure. Decontaminating suit. All clear. Welcome, Sam Porter Bridges.
Oops. Antimatter in storage. Spare ammo pouch. Cool.
Watch your back. Good work. New order.
Tommy says they are down. Alright, let me go grab this package then.
weapons restrictions lifted.
Okay. There we go.
The novelist's son is the guy in this area. Okay.
Beginning scan. Scanning bridges ID.
And there's a chip here? Did that had to have just got here, right? Because I got 3 stars.
All clear.
That had to have just got here. There's no way I missed that.
There we go.
There's no way.
Welcome, Sam Porter Bridges.
Oh, the cap for my chapstick fell off my desk. Hang on, what is it? The Odr... Okay. What is this? Charles Kahn, the Odridex, showing me some weird stuff. The incinerator. Strange thread-like structures. Linking the sky and the... Oh, okay, I know what he's talking about. Langdon, I owe you my life. I forgot to turn in my memory chip. Oh well, that's fine. We'll look at that next time. Antimatter in storage from Philip North. Did it say I had 2? Is that the only one? I think that was the only one. Okay. And then we got... Oh, we got another... Or no, what is that? Oh, we got the little... The Luden fellow or whatever. What do they call him? Ludian? Ludens. We got the little Ludens Actually, they all use that same stand-in. It could be a Ludens or it could be a figure. But it looks like we got one of those fellows. Okay. Yeah, pretty chill little stream here. We just got to listen to some videos that hopefully won't get claimed with all of my 0 views that we get on the VOD channel. But if that's the case, then so be it. So be it. Okay. I'm gonna go see what the guys are up to. I don't know, there's a chance I'll do some of this off stream and just go set up some ziplines. I don't know. Depends how bored I get later. Thank you guys for joining me. Oh, sorry, hang on. Real quick. Yeah, Kraken is doing Outlast Trials. Jabroni Mike is doing more Finger Family stuff. Limes is doing A Way Out with Bao right now. Uwo's Lab is still on his Stubathon. Okay. Thank you guys for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your night, and I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.